Hey, everybody. Welcome to She's Smart. I'm your host, Maria Robotham. On today's episode, I sat down with Eva Amurri. You know Eva as the creator of Happily Ever After, her lifestyle brand and blog, where she shares everything from motherhood and home design to personal style and wellness. But beyond the perfectly curated spaces and smart, relatable takes on modern life, Eva is a powerhouse, an entrepreneur, a mom of three, and someone who has navigated reinvention in so many ways. We dive into what it means to evolve in your 30s and 40s, the art of saying no, and the importance of female friendships. Eva gets real about career transitions, co-parenting, and balancing public life with personal boundaries. Plus, she shares the scoop on her latest projects, including her Benchmade Modern furniture collection and an exciting new home build project in Westport, Connecticut. This conversation is packed with honesty, wisdom, and plenty of laughs. So get cozy as we connect, learn, and laugh together on She's Smart. Hey,
Hi.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so happy to be here.
It's so fun. I feel like we've all hit this middle 40 age, and we've been doing the same thing for so long that we're not sure. It's time to reinvent. It's time to do something fresh and new.
Yeah,
and
I get that.
Right? And that's when, because you're almost 40.
Yeah, I'm turning 40 in 2 months.
Oh my God.
It's so
Are
crazy.
you going to do something fun?
My stepdad is working in London right now. He's shooting this show called Silo on Apple TV. And it's I think they're filming their third season. I'm not a sci-fi girly by any means, but I actually love this show because it's very character driven. He's out there for 6 months out of the year, every year, and he has this apartment with 4 bedrooms. So he was like, why don't you guys come? You can bring the kids. So we're going to go for 10 days. Over my birthday, we're just going to be out there, and I'm going to take off of work, which literally never happens.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I won't fully take off of work because that's also what always happens.
I don't think any of us who work the way we do and have our lives the way we do ever really completely turn it off.
Well,
do you find you have any moments where you do?
This career that I have chosen for myself, this very weird and oftentimes wonderful career, I feel like the line between work and life is so blurry for me. It's actually taken me, my company will be 10 years old in June.
Congrats.
Thanks. It's very surreal, but it's taken me until about 2 years ago to really figure out boundaries that work for me in terms of the work-life balance. It's something I've really had to work at. Yeah. And I'm still not great at it, but I feel like I'm a lot better. But it's so hard for me too. I got divorced 5 years ago. I was a single mom for a long time, and financially that's really hard. Yeah. I also wasn't in a place where I could say no.
Yeah, so you were just anything that someone wanted or asked, you were doing it.
It was like throwing all the spaghetti at the wall, like seeing what stuck. I had so many lines in the water. I really ran myself ragged, and I feel like I'm slowly coming out of that period of my life, which is very rewarding, but also I have these habits from the last 5 years because of that necessity to work that I feel like I jump to say yes. So I'm really practicing saying no, because saying no is very powerful. It's a powerful place to be. Yeah. I saw this meme that was like, unless it's a hell yes, it's a no.
That is what I say constantly. Yeah. So. Unless it's a hell yes, it's actually an F no. I find that this has been a huge commentary on this podcast with every woman that sits down with me. We're all of a certain age. Our kids are at a place. They are at school. They've got their activities. You have more time to really kind of hone in on what you want and create those boundaries. When they were little, I didn't have boundaries. Now as they've gotten older, I'm figuring that.
So I'm a very boundaried parent, and I had to be because I went back to work with all 3 of my kids immediately, which I do not recommend. I had to run a tight ship because I actually pre-COVID was traveling a ton for work. I was going to the city a ton for work. I was still like acting also kind of for a period of time. So I have had to run this super tight ship, which has turned out well ultimately, but now that they're all in school full time, we actually transitioned. I always had a nanny because I was gone all the time, and my ex-husband worked, now my current husband works, and we were always a dual income family. But now that my youngest is in preschool full time, and going to kindergarten next year,
amazing.
We actually, for the past 6 months, haven't had a nanny. That has been a really big shift, which has actually been a positive change for our family unexpectedly. For me, I thought it was going to really be a shit show, honestly, but we've kind of all improved upon our individual roles within the family. I think the kids now are old enough that they've taken on more responsibility. And so now it's kind of like we're this unit who's all sort of working together, and it's not always perfect, but I find that the kids also really like being with us. You know, there's sort of that camaraderie.
Yeah. I love that you all did New Year's together. That's what we do every year. Yeah. It was so cute. The kids love to be with other kids. Parents get to be with parents.
Yeah.
Everyone's vibing and having a great time.
You know, it's nice. Honestly, I don't know about you. I'm out of my party era.
I am a selective party girl.
Yeah.
I have moments where I'm looking forward to this event. I'm good. But no, gone are the days where it was like...
No, I just don't
raging.
Care anymore. I mean, there's really not all that many people that I like spending time with, period.
Yeah.
I find that I've gotten more selective and kind of more of a hermit in my older age, but I don't really think there's anything wrong with that, personally.
No, it feels really freeing to not have that feeling where you're like, oh, I have to be at that thing. Now it's like, no, I get to be selective. And I've got my friends. I'm so good with that family we've created here and those people.
Yeah,
like,
no doubt.
It's a really fortunate feeling to have that. I don't know if a lot of women get that.
I always feel badly for people who don't have really great female friends around them. I think for me, that has kind of been my touchstone and my survival over the years is having those great friendships. And honestly, it takes a long time to find your people. And it's okay to move on from people that don't feel like those people.
Yes.
So that's a lesson I've learned over time.
Well, and you moved here. Yeah. You didn't know anyone, right?
No,
like you
not
were
one person.
Not one person.
Yeah.
Was Kyle from here? Was he
so Kyle's from Westport. We moved back. We were living in LA, which I loved since we got married. He was working in Connecticut. So he was actually gone 4 days a week, which was actually, since we got married so young, I was 25 when we got married, was great at first because I could do my own thing, have my own life. He would work, we'd come back together. When I was pregnant, it was less fun. When I had a baby, it was a lot less fun. I was just basically single parenting in a marriage, which was a nightmare. And I was working. Yeah. And when I got pregnant with Major, we were kind of like, listen, this is not working. We have to move closer. And he had this aversion to moving back to Westport. It was like too close to home.
Okay.
And that's his own things, which he's entitled to, but he didn't feel comfortable moving to Westport at first, so we looked in Weston.
Okay.
Found a house, renovated, and I was 8 months pregnant when we moved into our house in Weston. And I had to move in because I home birthed my kids. So I give birth to them in the house. I loved that house. And then we found this historic home in Westport.
Yeah.
We had always kind of dreamed of renovating a historic home. So we bought that, renovated it for 2 years, got divorced in the process.
Jeez, yeah.
Which I won't say was the reason we got divorced, but it wasn't not a contributing factor, as anybody who has renovated knows. That's kind of a joke, but it's also real. And I lived in there. Then COVID happened. And I really wanted to keep the kids in there for a while. It was so much change so quickly. A new sibling, a divorce, and this whole thing was really important to me to stay in the house. And it was really hard financially to stay in the house, but I did it. And then finally I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
Why am I bankrupting myself?
Yeah.
Over like a piece of geography? Like, this is not a good idea. And the market was great. So I sold the house, moved into a different part of Westport, which I actually love.
Oh, good.
But it was a lot of moving in a very short period of time.
And when you moved here, you didn't have those female friendships. How did you come to find all of those great girls that you have now? That had to have taken a while. I mean, it took me a while. When I moved here, I didn't know a single person. You finally found those women that you connected with?
I always say to people, when you move somewhere new, you know nobody. As difficult as it is to hear, it really takes 2 full years.
Yeah.
And going into it, if you know that, it makes it a little easier, but it really takes those 2 full years. When I started honing in on the people I connected with the most was actually I joined this mom entrepreneur dinner club.
Oh, cool.
And
okay.
so for me personally, it was so hard out here, especially at the time, pre-COVID, to find women who worked, who had kids. It's impossible. Yeah. So for me, it was really different because I full-time worked. So a lot of times to perpetuate friendships or get closer, people would suggest play date at 11 a.m. or coffee at 2. And I was like, I just simply cannot do this. So it's really hard to get closer to people. Yeah. When I joined this entrepreneur dinner club, I met these other women like myself, who a lot of them owned their own companies like I did. It was a great way of both bouncing ideas off of each other and also connecting on a deeper level that I felt like I couldn't connect with other women who were not experiencing having super small kids and working at the same time. Yeah. Because for a lot of years, I think that was my entire personality. How do I manage these 2 things? So that's how I found them. And then I feel like my circle has gotten smaller over the years. Going through a divorce was really wild. Any woman who's been through a divorce will tell you your circle gets a lot smaller because there are a lot of people who are either A, surprisingly unsupportive when you're going through that, or B, they are very triggered because maybe they're in an unhappy marriage you, for whatever reason, going through that is extremely triggering to them and they'll kind of pull away or be nasty or whatever it is. I definitely edited down when I got divorced and kind of saw people for who they really were. And I think these big life events, whether it's grief or, divorce definitely incorporates grief as well, or even these really wonderful moments in life can show you where you stand with people. So I definitely edited a lot. And it's just been a constant process, but I'm obsessed with my girlfriends.
No, isn't it fun to be obsessed with them?
It is.
We joke that we're going to all just live together at some point with just a bunch of dogs.
I love that for you.
And just be they want a farm. I'm like, I will not work the farm, but I'm happy to run and do whatever else.
I'll design the farm.
I'll put everyone's closets together.
Yeah.
And how do you balance, because you are a public person.
Yeah.
And you're also really open and honest when you're on social media and in your blog and talk about your life, what's going on, so people connect with what you're talking about. But how do you balance being public with putting information out there that your family's going through that also is very vulnerable, that brings other people in to connect with you in that way?
So I have this term that I like to use called radical vulnerability. And for me, that's about, I feel the most empowered, the most like myself when I'm authentically myself. And I believe that through connection is where we find strength. I have a lot of experience being a public figure. I grew up with public figures. I was in the public eye from a very young age. I will say that I'm probably more comfortable than people who have become public figures in adulthood.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because I feel most like myself when I am completely myself and expressing myself in an authentic way. I find a lot of strength in that because that's how you connect on a human level with people. You realize you have more in common with people than you previously may have expected because of things you all have gone through. It doesn't always go well for me. And I think when you are open and share of yourself, there's always going to be people who don't agree with things that you're going through or have their own take or who are very triggered by that. Yeah. You learn to take the bad with the good, and honestly, I've developed such a thick skin that I don't really give a shit anymore. I've realized over the years that people's reaction to your truth is more about them than it is about you. Yes. That's something I truly believe. That's not just a soundbite that I tell myself when I'm feeling bad, but I really truly believe that, and I've come to experience that. So I don't really care. I do it for me. Secondly, I do it for people who may be experiencing the same thing but feel very alone because nobody talks about certain taboo subjects, which is why I shared about my miscarriage, divorce, co-parenting, certain feelings about parenting that I've had, insecurities, toxic relationships I've been a part of, just these topics that I think are hard for people to talk about, particularly in the public eye.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, and I've experienced feedback that this has been the case for some people, hopefully it makes people feel less alone in what they're going through. I truly believe that the truth will set you free.
I find it to be inspirational too. The more women who talk freely about these topics, it really helps us all connect together so that there isn't this weird drama, jealousy, or judgment. Because I find that there's a lot of judgment out there. And I agree with you. If you're able to talk about it, it sets you free. It took a long time to figure out, though, to get to that point.
But I always think what's so funny about it is I find it hilarious because I also have people who really come for me in a really extreme way.
Yeah.
Like, in my opinion, if you go out of your way to go online and type out your feelings about someone, you're actually a fan.
Yeah.
That is an amount of energy that is a little suspect, in my opinion. I'm always think to myself, it's so funny that people who do this kind of stuff don't realize that it says everything about them and absolutely nothing about me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like we all have judgments in our own mind. And a lot of the times, judgment within ourselves comes from unspoken or unprocessed feelings about the topic, right? It's mostly about us. But there's a difference between thinking those things, processing them, and outwardly expressing them. And I don't mean to your girlfriend or your sister. I mean to the public. It's wild that this person doesn't realize this is actually embarrassing for them. So it doesn't affect me personally, because I think this is actually so embarrassing for you. I just, honestly, I feel badly for them that they're going through whatever it is they're going through, that they are in a place where they're putting their energy into this. I mean, why do you care?
Yeah. Can we talk about dry January? You mentioned that you were doing dry January.
I'm more doing like California dry January. There's this term California sober, which obviously is not real sober, but it basically means that you smoke weed but not alcohol, I guess.
I love that. Being from California, I appreciate that very much.
So I have not had alcohol so far in January.
Amazing.
But I have been having these kind of Jang THC things every now and then. I think dry January, it's a great way to reset. There are many people who experience dry January and realize that alcohol is not serving them through that process. And that's great.
Yes.
And I think if it exists for those people just to become sober at a time when everybody else is doing it and then go from there, that's fantastic. But I also don't judge anyone who doesn't do dry January, doesn't make it through dry January. Who cares? I'm a live and let live kind of person.
Yeah.
But I do highly recommend these THC cocktails. They're fantastic.
We were at a luncheon and they were serving these THC cocktails. And the person who bought it thought it was like a CBD thing.
Oh, well, there are some like that,
Yes.
but I guess this was not.
But our friend who drank one did not realize it was THC. It was like, I need to go home.
Yeah.
Like, there's this, it was amazing.
That is
Let me
amazing.
realize the difference.
Yeah.
But that's good to know. I'm not a big THC fan in general, so I'm
was
curious.
not at all.
Okay.
I'm very freaked out by it. I had a bad experience. One time, Kyle and I went to a Roger Waters concert in LA.
Okay.
I'm just like not a drug girly in general.
Yeah.
It's just like not my thing. I don't like feeling out of control. We went to a dispensary in LA. This was like, I think maybe even before, or no, maybe we just gotten married.
Yeah.
We were very young. I think I was 24.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got these lollipops at the thing. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'll have a lollipop to have during the show. So nobody told us you're supposed to take like 2 licks of the lollipop. I ate an entire lollipop at this concert, and I was feeling a little messed up as we got home, but I woke up and I was so fucked up. I was like, you have to take me to the hospital. Like, I'm dying. I was so freaked out. And then you just have to wait for it to go away.
Nothing else you can do.
So I got so scared and traumatized by this experience that for years I was like, I would hear THC and be like, hell no, no way.
Yeah.
And then a girlfriend of mine, Julia Joffic, she has a blog, Lemon Stripes.
Yeah.
She stopped drinking alcohol and found this company, Jang, which is the one I'm talking about. She was like, it was so low dose. You have to try to think you're really going to like it. So I started off with half a can, which is like laughably low. I was so freaked out the first time. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to feel? You know, and it was so fine. But anyway, my point being, I get it because I was totally that person. But for me, it's just this kind of calm, warm and fuzzy. You don't feel messed up. It says on the can that 1 can is equivalent to 1.5 glasses of wine. No, 1.5 glasses of wine for me is like nothing. Yeah. I like don't even realize I've had wine at one. Maybe it's because I'm 5'10" and like, you know, I don't know, but you're a very small person, but I am not. So anyway, but it was very low key. I feel like that's for me is my dry January thing. Alcohol is anyone who was surprised by the Surgeon General's warning, like, come on, babe.
It's just like waiting for it to happen, you know?
Exactly. Everyone knows alcohol isn't good for you. But I think even in the light of that, it's nice just to take a break.
I agree. It's a good reset.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I was not a pot smoker. Being from California, surprising.
Yeah, you don't seem...
I'm not. I'm too controlling. I need to know what's going on at all times. But in college, we had a split dorm, so the girls were upstairs and the boys were downstairs. And the boys in the downstairs were all engineers. And all the girls in the top were like arts and science because they wanted the engineer boys to have less social life. They put the arts and science up top. They were smoking pot one night.
Yeah.
And I was really good friends with them. And I'm like, oh, I can do this. I smoked a little bit in high school. I stole my sister's bong at one point and passed it around to my friends. Never was a great reaction to it. I did not like it.
Yeah.
I decided this was a great idea. But it was a gravity bong. Did you know? So it's like you take, you let it all go into your system, and then my heart rate was 200. I thought I was going to die. I was stoned all the way into the next day.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's it. I'm done. I will never touch it again.
Yeah.
It does not need to be a part of my life.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I've ever done other than drink. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I feel like sometimes those experiences happen and they're so scary. It's interesting because having kids that are growing up and becoming teenagers, there are no innocent drugs anymore. No. Everything is scary. Everything is horrible. Also, social media is all over the place. I was saying to somebody the other day, one of the saddest things about our kids' generation is that they have no space to experiment and
or make mistakes.
No, they can't.
It's a huge bummer.
You know, when you were doing that gravity bong,
imagine if someone like filmed it.
Exactly. So I mean, I don't know. I think about this a lot. As somebody who works on social media, my kids are not getting social media. They're not getting phones till well into high school. There are so many things that are not good about it. For young kids, it makes me sad because Facebook started when I was in college. Yeah. It was very innocuous. Just people uploading like 200 photos on their digital camera the next.
Not even deleted, like every photo.
Every photo. So it wasn't that bad, but I think if I hadn't had those years, particularly high school and college, to really mess up and experiment. Not that I was doing anything crazy. In retrospect, I should have been more wild than I was. I wish I was. Even just having that time and space where you know that people aren't seeing everything that you're doing. I think about that a lot as a mom. I think some parents are grateful for that in a way because they like to keep tabs, but I'm not. Like,
no, I just want my kids to bike around and come home before the sun goes down.
I'm not a surveillance type of gal with my kids. Like my husband and I don't have each other's locations. I personally find that bizarre when people do it. No offense to anybody who does that, but I find that I can't. I just feel like there's no privacy.
There isn't. There was an incident on the bus.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Where Easton was asked about liking some girl. He was like, no, come on, don't ask me that. Another girl was videotaping him, trying to, I don't know, get him in a position of saying something he wasn't supposed to.
Right.
And sent it to the girl.
Yeah.
And Easton comes home and he was so upset. I'm like, you did nothing wrong in that video. You were so honest and nice. Imagine if someone was filmed saying something that can never be taken away.
I mean, yeah.
It was boggled my mind.
This is something I communicate to my kids as well. The internet is forever. But so are text messages. Yeah. So I always tell them you don't put out into the world in a digital form, whether that's a text message or an email or a video, anything that you would not want put on a billboard in the middle of town. Period. And just to start thinking about that is so important. And not that, my daughter, who's the oldest in our family, she's not interested in all of that stuff. And I think one positive from me having the career that I have is that they see that there's space between social media and reality. Not to say that what I post isn't real. It is real. But for example, we do 2 holidays. The one that we shoot for the blog, because it has to be out 2 months in advance, and the real one. You know what I mean? Having these little windows into how social media is not complete reality has been a huge learning tool for them, and a good jumping off place for these types of conversations. But she's really not interested, and she's not a TikTok girly at all. They like learning. My son is a dancer, and he likes learning all the dances. So that's different, but they definitely don't post. They've asked me before, you know, how many followers do you have? And I'm like, a lot. That's all I said. I don't get into it.
Followers are not friends. Let's just remember.
And just even this whole concept of quantities and stuff from social media is just so toxic and
it
stupid.
is. I think in Australia they've banned the number. Like, you cannot see, if you live in Australia and there's an account, you can't see how many people have liked a post. Like, you as the person can see it, but it's not out there into the universe to be like, oh, well, she only got 10 likes.
Right.
Because it's, I mean, how awful if that's what your self-esteem is coming from.
Well, yeah.
And as a kid, and you're seeing that so young.
Right.
We have enough shit we go through.
Totally. Well, I mean, look, social media is part of my livelihood. Literally how I make money. I do social media marketing on my own channel, and for brands that post on theirs. As pervasive as social media marketing is, and it really does sell things. This is why it has been a disruptor in the marketing space. It also comes with some issues. There's just no checks and balances within the industry, and I think it's going to change. I'm even noticing it shifting a little bit, which I think is good. It's like with any new frontier, it goes for a while without any kind of infrastructure, making sure everything's kosher, and then you revise it in a healthy and productive way. We're kind of in that space right now. I mean, you even saw, I was part of a Instagram release or announcement where they announced the changes that are happening for kids' accounts.
Nice.
Which is great. Now, absolutely cannot have an account unless you're, I think it's like 15 or something. They're making you submit documents and the whole thing. There's certain guardrails they're putting on those accounts, and they're taking it really seriously because they have to. I don't think they were doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. I think it is now a legal necessity. But I think it's good, nonetheless. Even though I do work in that space, I definitely am not a blind supporter of that space.
It's even better for you as that person. You put products out there that you're like, I really like this. This isn't me just hawking this and the other.
No, like it's so funny that you say that, because people will reach out to me after I promote something and they'll say, do you really like this? And my response is always, babe, my word is my entire livelihood. I would never promote something that I can't stand 100% behind. And by the way, there's a lot of things I say no to that I can't stand behind. I always say, you know, if I'm putting my word behind something, yes, I do really like it. You don't have to ask me twice. And there are rules for us as well. Like, for example, people will say, oh, well, you're just paid to say that. No, if I was paid to say it, there would be disclosures. You can get in a lot of trouble for not doing that now. I think that that's changing as well, which I think is ultimately really good. People need to have a higher tolerance for ads on social media. You know what I always tell people, from October through the end of the year, every person who works in social media will be posting a lot of ads. What I always say is, you can go onto my blog for free. I create content all day long that I am investing in to put out there, whether that's photographers, product, my time, styling, assistants. That all is free content. Just be supportive of the ads, because these brands are paying so that you can get your content for free. Supporting doesn't mean you have to buy the product. It just means liking it, commenting on a post, sharing it, just being supportive. That supports us so that we can continue to do this for free. For free for them, you know? And that's why we charge brands. It's a great industry, but it costs a lot. Anybody who's tried to do it, which you know, because you have Instagram accounts, you have this podcast, people are so snarky about it until they try to do it and they realize how much work goes into it.
And then half of them stop. because it takes a lot.
And look, we're not curing cancer.
No.
We're not surgeons. It's not that level of difficulty. No. We're not first responders, but it is more challenging than people realize. If it looks easy, that's a sign that somebody's doing it well.
But, that's a really good point. Because everything you do is very curated, but you have put so much into it. There's so much into it. I've been doing videos for clients when I'm styling them for videos. They've hired all these people and then have to figure out the timing for all these people. And then the outfit changes for all these people and this, that, and the other. And I find that it's not even like the hours it takes to actually produce something. It is the brain space that it takes up. I don't know if your brain ever turns off. I mean, at some point it has to, but I find that there is a million different things going on, from family to work to volunteering, that everything has to be thought about.
No, absolutely.
All day long.
Right.
Like the brain space is even taken up. The time is taken up in the mind.
And it's also how you post-production as well. So when you're posting on social media, you're not just posting, you're optimizing. A ton of research goes into it. I study my back end of the blog, of social media, of everything, and plan. My job that I do is actually like 10 people's jobs, really, that go into one, whether it's social media presence or online brand, I guess you could say. And then, of course, because I'm insane, I added a furniture collection on.
You want to talk about, it's Benchmade Modern, right?
Yeah.
I read the background of how you bought something and the kids loved it. Yeah. How did that relationship come about with you and them?
Yeah, so basically, I was a customer first of theirs. And when we were moving into our new home in Westport, I ordered their couch because what I love about the brand is that everything is custom sizing. I had this huge family room that I really had envisioned a certain kind of way. The couch that I had in my old home, which was custom, the way that the L was didn't work for the new space, which was so annoying.
You have a giant couch. What are you going to do with it?
Which is literally, as we all know, they're like 10 grand. A custom couch. So I was like, okay, we have to get a new one. And the performance fabrics are amazing. It's made in the US. And it was also a very short lead time. So I was like, okay, we got it. And we became like that couple who, when people would come over, would be like, you have to sit on the couch, feel this couch. It was actually obnoxious. I ended up sharing about the couch, and then I guess sold a lot of couches.
Amazing.
So they came to me and they were like, listen, we love your style, we love your message, we love your brand, you sold a lot of your couches. Would you want to do a collection with us? Which for me, although my blog and my brand is very multi-pronged in terms of my focuses, interior design has always been something I've really loved and I've been very passionate about. And it's also been one of the most successful branches of the blog, just like monetarily successful. So whenever I would post about stuff, people really responded to that, and the room reveals and everything. I had always had in the back of my mind that going into that space was something I wanted to do with product. And also because I had my own collection of clothing, which was great, which was self-funded. I could literally come back on this podcast and talk about just that because I think it's very interesting. It was so tough because I really wanted to be size inclusive and all this stuff. And basically the nutshell of what I learned was it was so tough to self-fund because you have to put up like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and especially because the breadth of sizing that I wanted to do was so wide. And then just selling clothing, especially now with fast fashion and all this stuff, it's impossible. You know, what you have to price stuff at to make up. It was really interesting to learn all these lessons. I had that. I did a full year of seasons, and I was like, you know what? This is just not... Clothing is not where it's at. And
unless you're doing mass quantities, you're not getting that price break.
Totally. So it just didn't end up, it actually was technically financially successful for my company, but it was not tenable. It was ridiculous, right? It was so stressful. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But this opportunity presented itself to me with Benchmade Modern, and it was really just plugging into what was already existing. They are, by the way, the most insanely wonderful customer service. It is made right here in the USA. There were all of these core brand identities they have that I really could relate to and that I really respected. So to be able to kind of plug into their system, design the line in a space that I already was curious about, the ethos of having family furniture that can really stand up to family life was important. Yeah. There's some crazy statistic, and I wish I remembered it exactly, but the Benchmade team told me something like a very large number of people, when they buy a sofa, they'll spend all this money and they actually only have it for 1 to 2 years because of moving or because of it getting ruined or because of all this stuff.
Wow.
So knowing that, and I've been a victim of that. I've gotten like I don't want to say the brands, but custom, my own fabric from these brands, and it really wasn't performance. It got trashed by my kids, or it would start kind of falling apart, and it was really annoying when you've spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was important to present a product to families that were like, okay, it is an investment because it's high quality, it's custom made, all of that. But the performance fabric is really performance. I mean, I have a white couch.
Yes,
my
I
kids
saw it. It's
have
beautiful.
Thrown up. They've literally bled on it. My son kicked a soccer ball into a glass of red wine that I was holding and went all over everything, and it's fine. But it also, my collection with them is modular. So you can add pieces and adjust it if you move, if your family grows. So that was super important to me too. And it's just been so rewarding and fun. The response to it, we've already sold almost $1 million of furniture in
insane.
less than a year.
Yeah, it started like 6 months ago, right?
Yeah.
That's insane.
So lovely for me is I love having these products that I know are amazing in people's homes.
Yeah.
That just makes me happy to know that these are things that not only are especially made for them, because all the couches are. Of course, you can buy the chairs and the benches and whatever that are, just come as they are, but you can get these pieces that hopefully will stay in your family for generations that are exactly the fabric you want, that you can live on, you can have pets on, and that can really become a part of your life. That for me as a brand is so wonderful. Yeah. And it's what kind of keeps me going.
They stick together, the modular part? Like, how does that work?
You can add pieces to, so let's say you have this couch.
Yeah.
You could then add a piece that has a chaise onto it. So it's kind of a piece with a part that sticks out.
Yep.
Or you can add another piece in between here. So let's say this was cut here. You can add another piece if you want to make it wider. Yeah. So it's great. And so I have them now like everywhere.
That's amazing.
In my house, my sister has a chair and a couch in her house. My stepdad.
You get a couch.
Yeah,
you get a couch.
You get a couch. Kyle, I made a couch for him. His is beautiful. This is really funny. I was at the OBGYN.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not during my exam, but shortly thereafter, my OBGYN was like, I love the couch that you did for your ex-husband from your line. I was like, thank you. And he was like, I think I'm going to order that. What do you recommend? I was dying. This is how you know you've made it. Yeah. So anyway, his is gorgeous. His is this really beautiful kind of nutmeg performance velvet. I have a bright marigold performance velvet in my media room. I wanted families to be able to, yes, it's an investment. It can grow with your family.
Then you're investing in something that lasts.
Yeah, and we have some very fun expansions to the collection that are happening early this year. I'm very excited by this kind of new area, and shortly before this goes live, I'm going to announce a really fun new project that I'm doing.
Oh my gosh. Get the
intel. So I've actually partnered with the Odell Group. Chris Odell and his company, the Odell Group, renovated my house, the house that we renovated for 2 years.
Yeah.
Got to know him really well. Since then, we've kind of had this dream to do a project together. So I'm creative directing a new construction build that's going to be on Campo Beach. We're starting this spring. It's going to be for the next year. It's going to be a complete wellness-focused smart home that we're building from the ground up. I'm producing and shooting a web series around it called The Westport Project. And that will be releasing in real time. So
get out.
People will have the chance to follow along with the world of the build and get some insight into that process. So that's really fun and exciting, and it's kind of building off of this momentum that, you know, Happily Ever After has in the interior space, and it's going to be really fun.
Is it going to be under the Happily Ever After?
Yes. So I think for now, I kind of went down the road of figuring out if I wanted to do this with a network, but the lead time is too long, and I really wanted people to be able to see it in real time, or relative real time, a few weeks later.
Yeah.
So I'm going to release it on my YouTube. It's going to be 10 to 12 minute episodes every couple of weeks. I'm really excited. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be something I've never done before. It's going to be something the Odell Group has never done before. But I think that Westport is so wonderful and such an incredible place to live. And I think it has more ways to live here than people realize.
Do you think you'll act again?
You know, here's the thing with acting. I had a handful of really incredible experiences. And I think that's why it was so hard to walk away, because I was a working actor. Like in any relationship or marriage, if something's good, but you want better, it's really hard to walk away. The thing ultimately with acting was I felt that I was always apologizing for being a wife and mother and having those priorities. For me, it was hard to be there for my family in the way that I wanted to be, and also be acting, because it really is a very unglamorous job in reality. You're shooting these long hours and you're often away from home. I did a show in 2022, which I did like an arc on. That was fun. Something's shot in New York. Maybe things will come to me that I'll audition for because they're great projects. Yeah. I think it would have to be the right thing. It would be fun. At this point, it would be so hard to clear my schedule to do it. Would do it if it was the right thing. Yeah. I think sometimes it's so fun, especially if you're working with the right people. It can be so creatively fulfilling. But it's just not something that I'm seeking out. But I always say never to that kind of stuff. Definitely. If the right thing came.
If it's a hell yes, then then you would do it.
Exactly.
Okay, so at the end, I always ask 3 questions. What is something that you have changed your mind about recently?
Something that I've changed my mind about recently. I would say that reality TV is something, not watching it, I've always watched it, but being on it was something that I didn't ever think I wanted to do. And in the last couple of years, it's been something that I've been more and more interested and passionate about doing, because I think that the way that I live, the way that I co-parent, the way that I have my blended family, it's really important to put out there in a way that is broader than what I could ever show on a blog. So that's been something that I'm interested in recently. I don't have anything official that I can share right now, but
when you do, you just come back on the podcast and we'll talk about it.
Exactly, but that is definitely changed how I think about.
Oh, fascinating. And have you thought about, like, literally the dynamic of that? Like, do you have cameras everywhere?
So, I don't think this is a secret, but I actually shot a pilot of a reality show everybody basically knows, even though I haven't confirmed it, but a little over a year ago.
Okay.
I can't talk about what ended up happening with it.
Okay.
But I was surprised by how non-invasive it was. I also loved working with a really incredible production company that is top of the people who do it, who they have such a shorthand, not only with each other, but with the people they work with. It was a lovely experience. Even my ex-husband, my kids, everybody involved were also surprised by what a positive experience it was. Not that they were expecting it to be bad, but I think we have in our minds a certain...
Yeah, like you're going to eat and there's a camera in your face and you're like, can I just like take a bite of my food?
No,
like,
it was very freeing in a way. And my husband is a complete introvert. We are basically as opposite in terms of that as you can be.
Okay.
And even he felt super comfortable. So I don't know, actually doing it is not kind of how I envisioned it either.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
What is one random thing on your bucket list?
I have an obsession with the idea of going to Dollywood, the Dolly Parton theme park. Mm-hmm. And this is definitely on my bucket list. So when people hear that, they're like, I'm sorry, what? I'm kind of obsessed with her. And I'm even more obsessed with the concept of a theme park based just on her.
Yeah.
So I definitely am trying to put together a girls trip. I was actually talking to my stepdad's girlfriend about putting together a girls trip to go to Dollywood. Because
there's a hotel too, right?
Well, I should hope
there's
so.
Like a Dollywood hotel that you can stay at. Like
I have a hyper fixation on that, and that's one of the things on my bucket list.
I love that.
Weirdly.
That's such a good one.
Know.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
So, as I get older, the thing that I keep on thinking about a lot is that you never want to be making decisions out of a place of fear. Mm-hmm. If you are making a decision out of a place of fear, it's a really bad sign for the outcome of that decision. So many things that I regret in life, I did because I was scared to not do them or scared of the unknown, right? I made a decision that was safer. That is something I think about often. It's something I talk to my kids about. I wish I told myself, for example, when I had been acting since I was in high school by the time I was in college, and even though I finished college and graduated, in the summers I would act. When I was graduating, a lot of my friends were just, obviously starting out in the world, like internships and all these things. And I remember at the time being like, it was kind of a crossroads. Try something new and start off from zero. Or I could go back to this thing that had been working for me, but that I wasn't fully in love with and that I liked it, but it wasn't my calling. I knew it wasn't my calling. I was so overwhelmed by the idea of starting over and not knowing anything about these other career options that I was interested in. Because I grew up in a family of artists. They didn't teach me about any other options. Right. And yeah, I really see that as this kind of turning point that took me 10 years to correct. It wasn't until I had my daughter at 29 where I really thought to myself, I cannot be telling this girl every day to do something where you feel fulfilled and to chase your dreams, and I am not doing that for myself. So I wish that I'd had the wherewithal to say, even if it's scary, even if it's the unknown, you cannot turn your back on things that you're interested in because of the fear.
Yeah.
And that lesson repeated itself so many times in my life.
Over and over.
As lessons will do until you kind of process them. But that is what I would say. And I still think it holds true into adulthood as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think if I could have learned that lesson earlier, my life would have been better.
Yeah.
Sooner. And so I think today it's what I tell people a lot.
I agree with you. It still happens.
Yeah. Where you see those people who leaned into the fear and you see where they are versus where you are. I don't just mean career-wise. I mean in their essence, where they are versus where you are if you've leaned away.
Yeah.
They're so much more evolved in their shit. Whatever it is, that is when you start to recognize those things. I'm grateful for the path that I went on because it really did literally bring me here to this spot right now. And of course, once you have kids, you really internalize that you're exactly where you're meant to be. I think when we do have children, we have the opportunity to pass on a lot of these lessons. And that's why I think it is so important to be so honest with our kids, not only about our successes, but also about our failures.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that's how they experience and really internalize things. It's one thing to say, I think you should do this for this reason. It's another thing to say, this is what I experienced when I did not do those things. And
well, it's a good way of explaining it to them, too. So it's more about, like, this is what happened to me, not the other way around. That's awesome.
Yeah.
This has been so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today on She's Smart. New episodes drop every Thursday. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Stay cozy.